Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about F. Wesley Snyder's Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, brilliant new D&D canon hardback. We're going to talk about Chapter 4, and we're going to talk about Shadows of War. And so our player characters have left with Knight of Solamnia, Beckland, and have left with Knight in Training, Darrett, and have left with Mercenary Captain Cudgel Ironsmile, and have left with Vogler's Mare Raven Uth Vogler, right? And there are these 25 boats that are containing all of the people who belong, all of the Vogler citizens, okay, who are not dead, and their corpses are burning in a Vogler which is currently literally being burned by the Red Dragon army, right? So Vogler is in flames. The people of Vogler are in a makeshift raft, 25 fishing boats that are tied together and going down the Vingard River. And so we're going down the Vingard River, and then we get to Calamon. Let's talk about Calamon. Calamon is this great Solamnia city, okay? It's in eastern Solamnia, and it is a walled trade city, okay? And that's important, right? Because this is a walled city. You're like, well, what's it matter if it's walled? Guess what? If your city ain't walled, a bunch of Draconians are going to roll up with some excited dragon soldiers who are human and whatever other species they could gather together, and they're going to burn your city like they burned Vogler. They're going to run right in, they're going to throw torches onto your thatched roof, and they're going to burn your city. That's why a wall is important, right? All right, let's talk about this. One thing, oh my gosh, every paragraph of this book is just so beautifully written. This is the next thing I love about this, right? So you got the people of Vogler, right? They're heading down the river. They're frightened. They're terrified, right? There are these Baz Draconians, right? These winged creatures who have a breath weapon. They're humanoid. They're medium-sized, right? They're humanoid. They're medium-sized monstrosities. I don't think they're actually humanoids. But they're Draconians, right? And they are dragon flesh incarnate, right? Like, and corrupted. They're corrupted versions of dragons, right? So you have these creatures, and so the people of Vogler are absolutely terrified, right? And this is really scary, and this is a big change that they've recently gone through, right? This is where it gets interesting. These terrified people of Vogler, what do, right? Well, the first thing, because they have Mayor Raven von Uth Vogler, she organizes them and she says, hey, who's missing, right? And so they immediately start making lists, right? And everybody, and so everybody in this village, like, I live in a town, Brookhaven, Pennsylvania, right? And like, even us, you know, we got a town. It's not, but in a village, you know everybody. And I could do this in my church, right? My church could do this, right? We have about 300 people connected to the church. And you could say, hey, who's missing, right? In any room that the church was gathered, and they could tell you, they would be able to list off the top of their head who's missing, right? The village is the size of a church, right? It's 150, maybe 300 people, and they can tell who's missing. So they make this missing list, and this is beautiful, right? I live in a quaint little town, right? And it's beautiful, and I really love the town I live in, and it's really special and it's unique, right? But what's really interesting is we couldn't list. You couldn't do this, but in my church we could do this, right? But it's really beautiful to me to see this situation where these people are actually able to list who is there, and they know who is and they know who is missing. And I'm like, that is stunningly incredible, right? That is a really incredible, beautiful thing, right? To just be able to say, I know that these people are missing, right? And that the members of this village are able to make this list. So they make the list, right? And so many people are like, well, I know they're back, burned as a corpse, right? But other people are like, hey, there was this one group, right? And so there's going to be a group of people, and they're like, oh, hey, what's going on? Who's where? Who's where, right? And so you reach this point where you've reached this point where you're like, okay, these people are here, right? And they get to a point where they said, Lord Bakaris, Uth Estide, and Bakaris the Younger are missing. And then somebody else says, well, I know they're not missing. They got on a boat and they headed down Vingard River toward Hakalamon earlier, right? So the people know that Lord Bakaris, Uth von Estedes, is missing, and they know that that not only are they missing, but they are heading on their way to all the way to Calamon, right? So the player characters and the group of heroes, right? I'm gonna refer to the group of heroes, and actually, you know what? The group of heroes in the story. That's the player characters. That's Raven. That's Becklin. That's Darrett. That's Cudgel, right? That's your group of heroes. So the group of heroes, they say, okay, let's see where Lord Bakaris and Bakaris the Younger are in Calamon. So they arrive in Calamon, and they immediately start to search for Bakaris. And this is truly, it's really fresh and unique and special, because when they're looking for Bakaris, they're looking for Bakaris from the perspective of, oh, Bakaris is lost and we want to find him and make sure he's safe. But Bakaris is not only safe, he is actually doing things dirty, and he is talking to Governor Miat in Calamon and trying to raise a force of Calamon soldiers to go back and take Vogler, right? Now the problem is, this is Lord Bakaris, who lived in Vogler, but he's not the mayor. He doesn't have the authority for this kind of thing, right? So he's trying to seize power, and he's taking power out of the hands. He is taking power out of the hands of the actual person who deserves to have that power, and that is the mayor, right? So not only is Lord Bakaris was a member of Vogler, the village, and left without telling anyone, and now is trying to usurp power from the mayor. And the task that he's doing might actually be a good task, but he is doing this in the completely wrong way, and it is completely wrong. And the heroes find this out, and I thought this was really fascinating, just how this was managed in the story. That this village wanted to make sure everybody was safe, but there was a betrayer, right? There was a betrayer in a mist. They thought that everybody was sheep, and they were all just going to get some cud to chew. But the reality is that wasn't the case. There was a betrayer in the mist who was very much doing things dirty and taking actions to harm. And that's a big deal. Like, taking actions to harm when and you're trying to do the right thing, and you think people are you think people are on the same side, but they're not. And this is completely new and completely fresh problem in America, right? I think we've had this idea before, but right now D&D is in the middle of it, right? Are you a D&D advocate, or are you a D&D betrayer? If 2 weeks ago you were saying D&D be gone, you are a repugnant D&D betrayer, and everyone needs to watch out for you as we move forward. All that's my humble opinion. What's important is when I hear your humble opinion. When you get into the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.